Hi folks, welcome back to RecSport Education. You know, in my last episode, I wanted to cover something positive, so I decided to look at what are some of the best health therapies out there. And I gave you a pretty good list. There are a bunch more, but you know, I thought turnaround is fair play. Today, in our On the Spot series, we're going to be covering the top 5 worst health therapies out there. In a CNN report dated June 2013, Dr. Paul Offit wrote, "Healing energies are appealing to our sense of magic, and although the notion of something beyond our level of understanding is attractive, alternative remedies shouldn't be given a free pass. They should be held to the same high standards of safety and efficacy, and where scientific studies don't exist, we should insist that they be performed. Otherwise, we'll continue to be susceptible to the worst kinds of quackery." Now that doesn't sound unreasonable to me, and if you feel the same, stick around to explore my top 5 popular but nonsense alternative therapies that you may be wasting your money on. Number 1, Reiki. The word Reiki comes from the Japanese word rei and ki, meaning universe and life energy. The practice can be traced back to the spiritual teachings of Mikao Usui in Japan during the 20th century. Usui's teachings included meditative techniques and healing practices. Chihiro Yusashi, a student of the practice, further developed the healing aspect while disregarding the other parts of his training. This reformed practice of Reiki is what made it to the Western cultures during the 1930s. Being a Reiki practitioner requires no special background or significant training. A student simply needs to undergo an initiation from a master who attunes your energy so that you can then act as a conduit for life energy. You know, I wonder if this is so important. How did the first masters get their initiation if there was no one else around to provide the ceremony for him? It's kind of a chicken and the egg, isn't it? But maybe he was able to himself. I don't know. But if that's the case, why isn't that a part of the training? I just don't really know. There doesn't seem to be enough information about it out there, but it is beginning to make my 6th chakra itch. Training to be a master is said to take years, while the lower level usage is something you can be taught in just a day or two. No licensing or professional standards exist for the practice of Reiki itself, and the training methods are greatly different from school to school. Whether Reiki can be considered the unlicensed practice of medicine varies from state to state, but it's rare that a Reiki practitioner is trained in any sort of medicine. They are often massage therapists, and this carries a danger of missing and misdiagnosing other potentially dangerous medical conditions that should be evaluated by a medical professional. Okay, so that takes care of the background. What does the research say? Well, medical researchers at the University of Exeter surveyed studies published through 2008 and concluded that most studies were poorly designed and the evidence was insufficient to suggest that Reiki is an effective treatment for any condition. Other studies tested some of the claims that Reiki can be felt affecting the patients. A subject and Reiki practitioner were sat next to each other and separated by a cardboard divider so that they couldn't see one another. The Reiki practitioner was then to hover a hand over one of the subject's hands, and the subject was to indicate which hand was being manipulated by Reiki energy work. After 280 trials, subjects who participated in this test were found to be only 44% accurate at identifying which hand was being worked on. Such results are really no better than chance or guessing. Several other studies have been done to test other Reiki practice claims and found no evidence to support claims made by Reiki practitioners. Additionally, Reiki practitioners have come under fire from various regulatory agencies in various parts of the world for making unsubstantiated claims. Now, I know this makes some want to protest, and they may say there are some things that science just isn't able to measure. That doesn't mean something isn't happening, right? And I'll grant you that. But there are plenty of things we can measure. For example, if you make a claim that you can heal or cure a condition with your practice, and we see no evidence that the condition was healed or cured, then your practice failed to do what it said. And when your practice fails more than it succeeds, it gets this kind of review. Seriously guys, how many people does this therapy actually take? If it's an effective treatment, the answer is 1. At some point, can this be considered over-medicating? Can Reiki have a positive effect? Well, yes, actually, but no more than what is found from other similar kinds of stress reduction, relaxation, and positive thinking techniques can offer. It's a placebo at best, and a waste of time when you consider that basic meditation practice is just as good, if not better, at relaxing and balancing the body chemistry to aid in healing. And you can do it without all the spirit talk, energy, universe mumbo jumbo. I get it though. We all want to feel we're special and have some hidden power in us that makes us feel more significant. But I say you already possess intrinsic value that is invaluable just as you are, powers or no powers. So save your money, don't fall into the trap of believing in magic, and Reiki practitioners, find a better way to spend your time. There are many more effective methods for helping people if that's really what you want to do. Now if we're all done with that, let's move on to number 2, cupping. Some of you may remember not long ago I actually had a video of myself getting a cupping treatment done, and I had to take it down because I didn't want you guys to think that I would be supportive of this type of therapy, because essentially it's nonsense. And I did the therapy treatment myself because I wanted to get the experience of it. I've never done it before, and now I think I can talk about it in a more objective manner. So let's look at the history and background on this subject. Cupping has been around apparently thousands of years and has its roots in shamanic practices that held the belief that illness and infirmities can be sucked out of the body. And when you think about it, that's kind of ingenious. I mean, it's in some ways a lot better than 17th through 19th century practices of medicine. These guys were pretty forward thinking for their time. I mean, if I didn't have any knowledge of anatomy and saw bruising on the location that suction was applied, I would be so convinced that that clearly was gross, bad body junk being pulled out of the body. Now, according to the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, pain results from the congestion, stagnation, and blockage of vital energy, fluids, lymph, phlegm, and blood. If pain is the essence of disease, then suffering is a result of obstructed flow in the body. Chinese cupping is therefore a method of breaking up the blockage to restore the body's natural flow of energy. Now, I know some of you are already ahead of the reveal. If you're one of those, you're really smart and realize there's a significant problem with this statement. It's essentially operating under the assumption that pain is the essence of disease. But many diseases don't manifest pain, or at least not right away. Pain also isn't a very good method to diagnose any particular disease by itself. And some pain, like stubbing your toe or stepping on a Lego, is not related to a disease at all. In some cases, pain can be the result of swelling, and swelling can be seen as a blockage of sorts. But remember, this sort of blockage is actually the body's natural reaction and is a defense mechanism. And I kind of think the body knows what it's doing most of the time. Most practitioners will tell you about the long and ancient history of this practice, mainly from the Chinese perspective. But actually, it's been practiced all over the world and evolved independently. The Romans used it practically to remove poisons. The Native American Indian tribes used it to get out evil spirits. And the Chinese used it for dealing with what they assumed was stagnation in the body. However, the appeal to antiquity doesn't lend validity to a practice. Historically speaking, modern understanding has proven ancient knowledge to be misguided most of the time. And if you haven't guessed it by now, that is the case here. The practice today has been used for anything and everything, meaning it lacks a coherent description of its utility, which also makes it hard to organize a scientific study. There are no studies recorded in reputable scientific journals about this practice, although there are many articles published by alternative medicine magazines and are mostly from China. These sorts of articles have been shown time and again to make unsubstantiated claims and falsify their numbers and research. They also often aren't peer-reviewed, and there has been shown to be a publisher bias, meaning articles that make unpopular statements about this and other alternative practices are systematically rejected, leading the rest of us to believe there must only exist positive press, which is just irresponsible. I mean, come on, guys. Okay, so what does cupping do exactly? Well, practitioners will tell you that it removes stagnation and, among other things, pulls undescribed and non-specific toxins from the body. But if you all recall from another one of my on-the-spot episodes, that isn't a thing. The idea that your body is storing a lot of toxins in the muscles, bone, and other tissues is simply wrong. Your body doesn't work that way. There are substances that are left over from natural metabolic activity, but they aren't toxic, and they get flushed out of your body and down the toilet naturally. You and I, we aren't full of toxins. That's just not how our bodies work. And for the very few cases where a person has been poisoned by external toxic materials, methods like cupping have no ability whatsoever to pull those substances out from your skin or from your blood. Cupping does break blood capillaries under the skin. Blood cells remain trapped under the skin and are absorbed by the body over time, leaving various shades of discoloration that we just call a bruise. Your skin is elastic and held in place by tiny ligamental fibers. When exposed to a vacuum, the skin stretches away from other tissues, so the cupping effect is limited only to the layers of skin and has no ability to affect deeper tissues. There is no method of any kind that can pull anything out of your body through the skin. The only thing that comes out of your skin is sweat, secreted by special glands built into the skin, and sweat is 99% water. The rest is like dirt and bacteria trapped in your pores. You should also know that there are some dangers to the practice of cupping. Many people experience permanent skin discoloration over the area treated, even if they only do it one time. In cases where a person continues to receive treatment before an area has had time to heal, the skin can actually begin to die. When this happens, it's called a burn. Burns are usually painful, sensitive to touch, discolored, and in progressive cases, blisters will form under the skin, releasing pus and can even bleed. There have actually been cases where a person has had third-degree burns from repeated cupping treatments, because we should remember that most who practice this therapy are not medically trained and really don't know what they're doing. Also regarding these cases, it shouldn't surprise you that despite receiving serious burns requiring surgery to fix, the patients also didn't receive any relief from the conditions they were originally treating for using cupping. Are we having fun yet? I think so. Who doesn't like a good rant? Moving on to number 3, we have yoga. Now I know there are already lots of you ready to go ballistic in the comments section on this, but hear me out. There are just so many kinds of yoga out there and so many ways to practice it. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that some of those methods are really kind of weird. I mean, if it isn't the creepy instructor acting all sensitive and spiritual as he or she unnecessarily gropes various parts of your body, it's the creepy instructor playing Kumbaya on the acoustic and eyeballing all the spandex in the room during Downward Dog. Now, I know calling it a hippie practice is out of date, can be inaccurate, and a really stupid stereotype, but then why must they so frequently and unapologetically perpetuate the image? There's a reason YouTube channels and other outlets so easily poke fun at yoga, and when you see the satire, you can't help but identify with it. But clearly I digress. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine and the National Institute of Health, therapeutic yoga was beneficial for treating mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, stress, and insomnia. Yoga encourages relaxation and promotes focus on the present, shifting from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic system. It lowers heart rate, decreases blood pressure, lowers cortisol levels, and increases serotonin and blood flow to the vital organs. The studies also indicate enhanced muscular strength and body flexibility while promoting and improving respiratory and cardiovascular function. So why am I including this thing on my list? Clearly there is precedence for it as a valid therapy, right? Well, it may appear to be significant in that regard, but when you compare with other activities, you may find it just a few angle poses short of 8. The problem is several-fold. The popularity of yoga doesn't come from its therapy application, but from the cultural fads surrounding it. Most yoga work focuses on learning a set of poses and spiritual work. You cannot consider yoga a therapy for health and fitness because it fails at meeting those expectations and was never designed to meet them in the first place. According to one website, yoga training includes universal morality, personal observance, body posture, breathing exercises, and control of prana, control of the senses, cultivating inner awareness, meditation on the divine, and union with the divine. Now, does that sound like a treatment for health? No. A lifestyle choice, certainly, but not something designed for physical development. But yoga does develop the body, you say, and I say that's a bit of a stretch. And I won't even have to bend over backwards to prove it. Yoga is more of a religion than an exercise. It just happens to use physical postures as its medium for channeling the divine. Also, yoga doesn't know what it wants to be. Like most religions lacking a cohesive structure and mission statement, yoga offers an ever-increasing variety of ways to engage in its practice, without clear guidelines as to what practice is most correct and which practices are invalid. And then there's this.
I was anti-gun my entire life until I found gun yoga, and it's totally changed my perspective of the Second Amendment.
I mean, it's just like normal vinyasa flow yoga, but with an extra layer of firearms.
Hangover Yoga. That's right, we have a sequence today to hopefully nurture you if you've had a couple too many to drink the night before. Don't be so hard on yourself. We're here to balance the body, re-energize and revitalize the system, and hopefully get rid of some of those toxins.
Okay, I know, funny haha, but the last one is actually a thing. Yoga instructors receive a minimum amount of training about the human body. I looked through dozens of yoga-related searches looking for what all is involved in the certification, and only one site even mentioned anatomy and physiology. But wait, that's like the same coursework you get in high school anatomy and physiology. Instructors don't undergo training in kinesiology, physical therapy, somatotyping, anatomical variations, or learn about types of injuries or how to modify postures for students with anatomical conditions. Yoga instructors are sometimes required to have first aid training, but not always, meaning there are instructors operating with no background in the basic first aid or understanding of emergency response practices. This is especially unsettling when you consider the ridiculous practice of hot yoga, where students practice poses in a room designed to make you sweat and stress the body and heart, or power yoga, designed to take everything you know about yoga and turn it up to an aerobic activity. Yoga instructors spend more time learning the names of poses in the dead language of Sanskrit than they do on human anatomy. And actually, that's something that bothers me about other movement arts as well. Why does it matter what language you use? Why are you even spending time learning another language when there is just so many more important things to be spending your time learning? For example, out of the 200-hour minimum requirement to be a yoga instructor, a time frame many doctors feel isn't enough training, only 20 of those hours are dedicated to anatomy. According to one study, while yoga is found to be a low-risk activity, there have been shown to be relatively high rates of injuries with some groups, and almost no injuries with others, supporting a probable publisher bias, as well as suggesting that some styles may be less appropriate for certain demographics. But little distinction is made between various styles of the techniques they employ. Again, yoga doesn't know what it wants to be, and that makes it difficult to organize a proper scientific study on the subject. But common injuries for yoga include neck, back, knee, and shoulder injuries, torn muscles, herniated discs, and carpal tunnel. And finally, yoga makes claims of numerous health benefits. Now, I've tried several types of yoga, gone to various classes, and met different instructors. And speaking for myself, an athlete, educated in kinesiology and body conditioning, I've never had a class I found particularly beneficial or challenging in a way that would lend itself to furthering my physical development. But experience is relative to the activity level you are used to. So if, for example, you're a couch potato and you have very little physical activity in your day-to-day life, I have no doubt yoga practice will be challenging to you and bring many health benefits relative to your lifestyle. But likewise, if you are even mildly active and fit, eat well, and don't have any significant physical limitations, you will likely experience few, if any, small amounts of benefits from yoga practice. In other words, yoga is great only if you aren't doing literally anything else. There are so many other activities that will give you the same benefits of yoga, but do it better, faster, and cost significantly less than a yoga series, let alone the ridiculous price of the pants, mats, and ongoing training. You got to do better, yogis. Say it with me now, yoga isn't a health and fitness activity. It's a religious experience at best, and not a very good one in my opinion, and maybe a gateway to other ego-driven spiritualisms and all too common sex scandals.
Women are they're here for one thing, to spread their legs and make babies.
He was saying this in front of the whole class of people,
Yes, in front of 400 and some odd trainees.
Now, if that's what you're looking for, great. But it's just compared with most other physical disciplines, yoga poses as the poser. Well, now that we're all fired up, let's move on to number 4, the Alexander Technique. This was founded by Frederick Alexander in the early 1900s. Alexander believed that maintaining alignment of the head, neck, and back led to optimum overall physical functioning. Now that sounds pretty great, and I think it is a reasonable statement to make. He also said bad postural habits can alter one's personality. Okay, less reasonable, but maybe he has some particular insight about this. He also said his technique encompasses all religions. Well, that's interesting. I thought this was all about helping physical ailments. Surely he has good training to support his other ideas. He was a Shakespearean actor from Australia. Oh, interesting. What was the education system like in Australia at that time? Lacking and in need of considerable reform. Oh, okay. Universities didn't even show up until the 1950s. Well then, what led him to develop his ideas in the first place? Well, apparently he had a poor constitution and a difficult time speaking for long periods of time. No one else could help him, so he spent time in self-exploration to see if he could discover the cause and make corrections. And I guess it seems to have worked. Making adjustments to how he carried himself and how he spoke allowed him to carry on a career as a reciter and voice teacher. He was also heavily influenced by his Christian upbringing. You know, as you do. So what do we get from this? The Alexander Technique does some good for people who have bad postural habits. As a result, it has some effect at alleviating back pain and improving respiration and speaking habits. And I guess that's about it. Speaking objectively, this technique probably had more value in its time. The ideas aren't crazy and are even sound in reasoning, but they're also dated. They come from a time where there was less education and far less understanding about the musculoskeletal system. Now, I'm reasonably trained in these systems, less so than a physical therapist, but much more than an average teacher of any of the movement arts, and more so than practitioners of many health therapies. Which, granted, given this list, is pretty easy to do. In fact, I've known doctors who have less training, and that's not surprising either, since most medical training tends to focus on pharmaceuticals these days. What I'm saying is, I'm not a doctor, but I'm confident I can put together a more effective program than the Alexander Technique has ever been. But I don't even have to, because such programs already exist. Most of the Alexander Technique focuses on postural alignment and developing awareness of your holding patterns. You can develop that from exercise, dance, tai chi, qigong, physical therapy, Pilates. Heck, even yoga is probably more effective. And you know I mean it, because I just spent like 2 pages of this script bashing yoga. But you know, now that I think about it, if I were to rate these, I would definitely consider yoga better than the Alexander Technique. And the Alexander Technique is definitely better than Chinese cupping, and cupping is far superior at having an actual physical effect than Reiki, even though that effect is negative. But nothing compares to the next spot on this list. I present to you number 5, fire therapy. Now let's just get right into this one and take a look at these videos. There's actually quite a few videos on YouTube and other sources you can find that talk about or demonstrate this therapy. So I'm watching this with you now, and let's just see what happens. It looks like we're getting doused with what is this? Healing juices, I'm going to call it for now. We'll just assume that they're healing juices all over this guy's back. And what the cha! What? Whoa! That is legitimately horrifying. This guy is enveloped in flames. Wait, and he just okay, and he's putting it out. Oh, is that it? Is that literally it? I think we just saw all of what is entailed. Okay, so basically you lay down. I don't know if you're wearing if you're wearing clothes under all those blankets. I assume maybe so. It's not like clothes are any more resistant to healing juices than blankets, right? So then what does he do? He douses the blankets with some lighter fluid or some rubbing alcohol, and then sets it on fire. Oh, whoa! And he does it again. He just put him on fire again. Okay, interesting. You know, it occurs to me that one of the benefits that are commonly said that this invokes is that it helps with your blood pressure. And frankly speaking, just watching it makes my heart rate jump a few beats per minute, and so I think that's probably a valid case. There's a valid case for that statement. There's even smoke coming off this blanket. Let's see. This can't be all it is. This is a thing? So I assume by now I don't have to actually tell any of you why this is ridiculous. They claim this is pulling toxins off from your body. All he did was set the guy on fire. Let's check out another one. Look at this. Okay. Oh, we begin with a light massage. That's kind of nice. Okay, who doesn't like a good massage? And then what happens? Okay, she's putting on some ointment. Maybe some lotion, maybe some essential oils in there. What do we do next? Okay, they're covering him with a plastic covering, a sheet of some kind. Putting on a layer of towel. And now dousing that towel with healing ointment, which apparently is just rubbing alcohol. It's like 95% pure rubbing alcohol. I suppose you could do a 70%, but we want to make sure that this is really pure stuff we're using, right? To get all of the so-called toxins out of your body. And then she just sets him on fire. Now notice his arms are exposed. We have skin exposed near this open flame. I shouldn't have to tell you, there are plenty of reports of people being burned and scarred for life because of this therapy. And it's a big issue too, because there are no regulations for this type of therapy. So I'm just going to conclude with that horror show we just witnessed. And you know what? If you want to see more of this, let me know in the comments below. Tell me what you thought of these various therapies and treatments, and let's see if we can get a discussion going. Do you know of any other health therapies out there that are absolutely ridiculous? There are quite a few. I actually plan to do another episode on this in the future, so I will see you all next time. Please like and subscribe to the channel and check out the Patreon page. Stay healthy.